Alright, so I know that this video is a little late in terms of when it should have came out, and it's probably not going to get that many views because Ghosts of Tsushima came out over 2 weeks ago at this point, so the market for people watching Ghosts of Tsushima reviews is pretty much, done. But I want to do this video mainly to talk about a mini little review and my thoughts on the game Ghosts of Tsushima, while also bringing up the discussion of, is this PS4's best exclusive for the entire generation? It's questionable for this year, obviously, because you had a few different exclusives come out, but if we look at all of the exclusives that PlayStation has released within its repertoire, it is crazy amount of quality, and Ghost of Tsushima exemplifies that. So already just off the bat with my own thoughts on the game, Ghost of Tsushima is a phenomenal game. And let me just grab the case right here, okay? I love the box art for this game just to already start off, okay? The fact that we see Jin, the main character, in his ghost armor gear, and he's contemplating the decision that he's making, the internal struggle that you're going to see him go through in this game by holding the mask. I freaking love that. And then the beauty of the environment is captured in the cover of this game. You see in this top corner, you see flares of fire, little sparks of it, the red leaves, a white vista of plush nature. Like, it is a beautiful box art cover. And then you go to the back and you have another beautiful vista riding through these these yellow fields on a horseback. Man, if there's one thing that I can praise about this game for hours, it is the aesthetic and the presentation that this game completely nails. Feudal Japan is a time period that I think every Assassin's Creed fan has wanted to see come to life within the franchise's releases of games. And it has not happened. The closest thing we got was Assassin's Creed Chronicles, when you have that one segment in, it was China, I believe. It sucked. That game was awful. Don't ever play Assassin's Creed Chronicles. Garbage platformer, but 2D platformer. But anyways, this game takes place on the island of Tsushima during the Mongol invasion. Tsushima at this point in time is obviously closely connected to Japan, so the mainland is Japan, but Tsushima has samurai on its own island, and the Mongol Empire invades Tsushima and will eventually invade Japan. You play as Jin Sakai, who is a samurai for his clan, and pretty much all of the and this happens in the first 5 minutes of the game. Pretty much all the samurai get wiped out, and Jin is left with only a few allies that he rallies together, and he's supposed to take on this new threat, this entire army. And obviously, just being one samurai at this point in time, you can't take on an entire army by upholding your code, which is to fight with honor, never strike from the back or from the shadows. You fight your enemy head on, which is the opposite of an assassin. And you see the main character Jin become a mixture of an assassin and a samurai, and an internal struggle between the two. It is fascinating to watch. I feel that there's points and times where it can be a little bit too rushed, where 1 minute we see Jin contemplating his actions, and then the next he's already full force into just stabbing from the back. That mainly takes place in Act 1 though. But overall, it is a very fascinating internal struggle to watch play out in the story, and it's probably the most interesting part of the story. While you aid in pretty much trying to protect your island throughout the 3 acts of the game, you will meet a cast of characters that are very interesting, very charming, and this is one of the few games where I want to play through all of the side quests. It incentivizes you. And that's pretty much where I want to leave it off on the story overall. The story is really, really good. The characters are fascinating and great, and that's what really drives the story overall. Jin is a pretty interesting character. I look forward to seeing him explore more of himself in a sequel, because I feel by the end of this game he is 10 times more complex and interesting than he was at the beginning of the game. But the presentation of this game, from the sound design, from the music, from the art style and the graphics, everything is A1 top notch here. Like, it doesn't get better than this. This is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played in terms of the environments. My eyes are continuously taken aback by eye candy from what I see on my TV, and I'm playing on a 1080p screen on a fat boy PS4. Like, I'm not playing on 4K or a PS4 Pro or anything, and this game is absolutely gorgeous. The facial animations aren't anything to drive home about, but most of the time your character is going to be wearing a mask, and when you're looking at the environments, they're absolutely gorgeous. And this is why the photo mode is getting so much praise, because the game is so beautiful and the photo mode is so intricately well done that you can't help but just stop and take like 10 pictures. Man, I can't say enough about the presentation, so I'm gonna, stray away from it now. But just to reiterate, the fact that this game goes as far as to include an amazingly beautifully orchestrated soundtrack that isn't even made by a Japanese studio. It's made by freaking Sucker Punch, and it is done so well. It is so authentic. It's incredible. I can't praise the game's presentation enough. Like, that is the best presentation I've seen out of a game, I think, ever. And when it comes to the gameplay of things, the game is really slow at the beginning, but once you get to that middle first act part and then so on, it starts opening up in ways where it is so much fun. And you kind of evolve from fighting as a samurai into an assassin. If you watch any reviews, you know about people's praises of the stances, and I just gotta reiterate on those. The fact that as you progress and level up, that your character unlocks these stances that will aid you in fighting new enemy types. You go from, having a hard time fighting one certain, like a brute or an enemy that has a spear or dual wielding swords, and then by the end of the game you're able to take on any type of enemy, 3-hit kill them. You can parry perfectly. You're rolling and flipping back and forth. You evolve from fighting as a samurai into like a fucking, like, you turn into Batman. It's great. It's freaking great. The combat's great. The different items, from the bow to the smoke pellets and the poison darts that you get, it adds so much complexity to how you play the game. It is so much fun to play this game, and the customization is great too. You can go full on samurai with your look, or an assassin, or a wanderer, or a ronin. You can mix up different pieces of the outfits. You can dye them different colors. I can't say enough. There's so much customizability with that. And then you got your swords and your weapons as well. There is a lot of heart put into this game, and on all aspects, this is a top tier game from Sucker Punch. The only thing that I think I'm not too big a fan of is, and Sucker Punch has done this in the Infamous franchise, is that they will, when they do cutscenes, they'll pan away from the two people talking in the most basic, like, camera angle, and you don't even really see their faces, like their mouths moving. It's just like, camera's over here, two characters are over here, and then they'll just cut a few times, and then that's the cutscene. I've never been a fan of the way they do that, but other than that, everything is great with this game, and I'm just going to give it a score now, okay? This game is this game, man, I'm going to give this game a 9.5 out of 10, and the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is that for my personal opinion, I am a story-based gamer. I am story first in a lot of aspects, but you can obviously, go over that with your gameplay, but the story of this game was not completely unique, and I am a huge fan of The Last of Us Part 2, so haters be aware that coming off of The Last of Us Part 2 with such a unique and one-of-a-kind story in that game, and then going to something like Ghosts of Tsushima, which is a little bit more traditional in terms of how we've seen revenge stories told, especially with how the third act comes to a close. It didn't take me by surprise too much. It went into the more predictable territory, but overall, 9.5 out of 10. Incredible game. Had a bunch of fun with it. And just because I give The Last of Us Part 2 a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean that Ghosts of Tsushima doesn't place higher for me actuality, which leeways into the next part of this video, which is the PS4 exclusives, and is Ghosts of Tsushima the best one so far? Alright, so the 8th generation of consoles at this point is wrapping up, and with that said, we must pose the question, what is the best exclusive that Sony, the PS4, has come out with during its duration of its livelihood? And I have to say that this is an extremely hard question, and the PS4 honestly could be the best console Sony has come out with. From its online network and the different features that has, to the design of the console, to the power of the console, obviously, because it's the most up-to-date, to the plethora of third-party games that are on it, indie games, and the incredibly high-quality first-party games. That PS4 is a top-tier contender for one of the best consoles ever, and one of the, if not the best Sony console. I mean, there's only 4, but let's ask this question, because quite a few games. And I'm gonna turn my head over here. I'm just gonna look at the different PS4 exclusives, because there's a lot of different ones. We've got Bloodborne, which was my 2015 Game of the Year. Days Gone, which was second place for my Game of the Year for 2019. Detroit Become Human, great game if you are into the walking simulator types. Death Stranding, which was my Game of the Year for 2019. Final Fantasy VII Remake, which again, I think is 4th or 5th place right now for my top 10 games of the year. Spider-Man 2018, incredible game if you're a Spider-Man fan. Infamous Second Son, really fun superhero game. Uncharted 4, The Last of Us Part 2. Need I say more? The Order 1886, we won't talk about that one. Until Dawn, another fun walking simulator, but with a horror aspect to the game. God of War 2018, one of the best games I've ever played in my Game of the Year for 2018. And then we have Ghosts of Tsushima, which could be my Game of the Year right now. I don't know. I'm still debating that. But with that said, out of all these exclusives, and I think you can see a trend here, quite a few of them were my Game of the Years, or they took the 1 and 2 spot. This is where I want to praise Sony. I think Sony has done a great job at showing why their console is the console to pick over the Xbox One. Because I get all my multi-plats on Xbox One, and I get all my and I have a PS4 just to play exclusives. During the 7th generation of consoles, I was a big PS3 gamer, and then I switched over to the 360 because it had a way better online ecosystem, and I got big time into Halo. But it was 7th generation was a little bit of a mixture, but the 8th generation I decided to dilute the two by just playing my exclusives on PS4 and everything else I play on Xbox. And I don't regret that decision at all, but what I will say is that if I was going to do the opposite and get PS4 for the exclusives and all the multi-plats, and I would just play Xbox for the exclusives, I would be extremely disappointed with Xbox's outputting of exclusives for this generation. We've got Halo 5, we have the Master Chief Collection, which at this point in time now is one of the best anthology collections to ever be put on a console. I'll give them that. Gears 4 and 5, and that's about it. In my opinion, I think Rise of the Tomb Raider was a time exclusive, but overall, in terms of AAA exclusives that are only on the console, and then I think all of them are on PC now. Anyways, you see where I'm getting at. PlayStation kicked ass this year. Now, so far this year, it comes down between 3 games for me. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghosts of Tsushima, and The Last of Us Part 2. And between the 3 of those, I'm going to put Final Fantasy VII Remake at the bottom between the 3 of those, because it still does rely a lot on the original Final Fantasy VII game. But overall, though, I would there's more to Ghosts of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2 than there is Final Fantasy VII Remake for me. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is at 3rd place so far this year for PS4 exclusives. And in the 1 and 2 spot, I have to say between Ghosts of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2, I'm still going to play Ghosts of Tsushima. I'm not going to go back on The Last of Us Part 2 for a while. So this is what I'm going to say. Right at this moment in time, Ghost of Tsushima is number 2, and The Last of Us Part 2 is number 1. But most likely, in all honesty, by the end of the year, I'm probably going to go for a platinum trophy for Ghost of Tsushima. And with all of that said, probably is going to be at the number 1 spot in terms of just the amount of gameplay and sentimental value I have for the game at that point in time. So right now, Ghost of Tsushima is number 2. But it can easily be number 1 if I continue to play it through my own personal experiences and finish up the side quests. Now, when we look at all of the PS4 exclusives, I'm not going to put this game above God of War. God of War blew me away with its reinvention of the franchise, the one-shot camera angle throughout the entire game, the lore of it all, and the story, and the phenomenal gameplay. That game is, I hold high. And Bloodborne was my 2015 game of the year. I love that game. I don't ever want to go back and play that game, but that game did something to me in terms of, with its difficulty level. I was blown away. You turn into a different type of gamer if you play through that game. It transforms you. It transcends you. It's an experience I've never had. But I would still rather play Ghost of Tsushima easily over Bloodborne. So I think Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, and God of War are my top 3 PS4 exclusives right now. And the 3 of those are... I'm still going to hold God of War over The Last of Us Part 2 as well. So, yeah, I think Ghost of Tsushima is number 3 out of everything. But overall, I just want to say, Sony, great job on the PS4 exclusives. Spider-Man, Until Dawn, Days Gone. I love all those games. You guys did great. And yeah, that's it for this discussion. So, hope you enjoyed my little mini review. Hope you enjoyed my little mini tangent discussion about the PS4 exclusives. Here's to a great generation of consoles with the 8th generation of consoles. And thank you for watching.